Genshin Impact took the gaming industry by storm. It is a game that I feel that most of us are starting to miss. That same feeling of playing an MMORPG, killing monsters, collecting treasures, leveling up your characters, enhancing your weapons. This kind of games has seen a decline in numbers this past few years. And while I don't mean this as there's no good games being released, most of them are either paid AAA games or subscription based online games. The last game that I've heard that looks similar to Genshin Impact or Honkai Impact 3 is Vanishing Grey Raven, which is yet to be released internationally. We have yet to get a free-to-play, free-to-start game that has made the news that plays like this game, until the 28th of September 2020, when Genshin Impact was finally released. Now, before we begin, I would like to address some things first. I know there are a lot of controversies surrounding this game, especially since it's made by a Chinese company. These are trying times, specifically on the web side of things with what's been happening in the VTuber scene this past month. But I won't be diving into that because this video is dedicated to talking about the game and only the game itself, and we will set aside all things that related to it. And I also don't believe that the whole country is attacking VTubers. I am pretty sure that's just a small amount of people that really doesn't like the industry. Though it does make me sad about the recent happenings since I am quite an avid VTuber connoisseur myself. There's also this fear that the game is just a massive spyware for the country. While I doubt that it is the case, and I for one doesn't really care that much about privacy since everything that connects to the internet most likely collects your data. If your toilet's connected to the internet, it will probably record how many times you take a shit and send it to a toilet paper company. I am not downplaying the seriousness of privacy concerns in any way, shape, or form, and I understand that it is something that everyone definitely needs to be protective of. However, I want to review the game as what it is. I don't want anything outside of the game influencing how the game looks like to me. And I totally understand if you disagree with the aforementioned things. You may click off the video, no hard feelings. We are entitled to our own beliefs and perspectives, and I am not forcing anyone to share mine. I will be leaving a couple of articles down in the description as well regarding the allegations that the game faced about spywares, so you can give it a read before proceeding watching this video, just so you can give it some thought. Although by the time this video goes up, most people looking for this game would have already read about it, but you can still read them if you want. If you decided to continue watching, then let's get on with the video. Genshin Impact is an open-world action RPG with gacha elements that has a wide set of maneuvers that you can do. Aside from the typical jumping, swimming, and combat found in most open-world fantasy games, Genshin Impact allows you to climb virtually everything and glide across landscapes. Now, these two unique mechanics right here is what led people to say that it is just a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild clone. Not to mention that cooking is also part of Genshin Impact's gameplay that BOTW also has. Unfortunately, I haven't played BOTW, or any other Zelda games for that matter, since I live in a third world country and back in my childhood, I didn't have access to high-tech consoles like the Famicom. Not so fun fact, the PlayStation 2 is probably the most famous console in my country. Even to this day, a lot of people here have fond memories of that console. The PlayStation Portable probably comes second. So yeah, my country is more of a PlayStation-centric type and never the Nintendo type. I'm getting a bit off topic. Going back. Since I won't be able to compare Genshin Impact to BOTW because of my lack of playtime of it, I will instead compare it to other games that I can find some similarities with. Honkai Impact 3, for example, which is also one of miHoYo's games. Just looking at the character and weapon list will make you say, hey, that's just like Honkai Impact 3. Like seriously, just look at this. The only thing missing here are the rarity of the characters. Leveling up characters and weapons also feel the same as Honkai Impact. You can gain experience from killing enemies, but the most lucrative and fastest way of doing it is by feeding your characters with experience books, which cost obviously the experience books you can get from venturing into the wilds and huge amounts of coins. With weapons, you can infuse it with other weapons or with enhancement cores that you can get from crafting or just by exploring the map. Both of these activities eat up a lot of coins and are really expensive, especially if you're taking care of more than 3 characters. You also have the artifact system, which is just an expanded version of the stigmata system of Honkai Impact. Aside from the individual base stats of the artifacts and the bonus stats that come with it, artifacts also has their own set effects. Let's get the very obvious thing out of the way. This game is very beautiful. Just look at its graphics. I haven't changed anything on the settings, but I believe the game defaults to medium quality. But damn, this is something else. I have yet to crank up the quality to the max because even at the medium quality, I already have some FPS stutters. But for a 2020 game that only requires a GT 1060 or its AMD equivalent as its recommended requirements for the PC, it's really something else. And speaking of system requirements, I'll put my computer specs up on the screen. With this pretty much the system, I could still play it in medium settings as I've mentioned with just a few stuttering. So if you still have an old computer that's somewhat similar to mine, you can try the game out. It might just run fine with a few tweaks to the settings. I still won't be able to judge the story since the game left us with a huge cliffhanger in the main quest. I am aware that the game itself is a sequel for a webtoon, but I have yet to read it as well. It is free to read if I'm not mistaken, so I will be linking it down in the description. But the gist of it is you and your sibling was attacked, and whoever you choose from the two will be sent to Teyvat, the place where the events of the game happen, while the other sibling seems to get captured by the assailant, which happens to look a lot like Hershey of the Void from Honkai Impact 3. Is Honkai Impact 3 and Genshin Impact a connected universe? Anyways, the goal now of the sibling that you've chosen is to find out who attacked them and rescue the other sibling. They suspect that the assailant is one of the 7 archons that rule each region in Teyvat. Together with the very handy traveling companion, Paimon, the main character, Debas the Traveler, starts their journey to meet all the 7 archons of Teyvat. However, I must say, the dialogues in the game are pretty nice. It adds more world building and NPCs just don't say random things to you. Almost all NPCs that you can talk to in the game will always give you some dialogue options that you can choose from, which will give them different responses for each. And most of their dialogues, like I said, add more to the world building, making you feel that you are part of the world and other places exist, not just the place that you're currently working on. Weapons also have their own item description that tells a whole new story and that fits in perfectly in the world. This reminds me of Nier Automata, where each weapon tells you a very cryptic story and you unlock the next part of it when you level it up. It also reminds me a bit of Dark Souls. But instead of giving cryptic stories or just tidbits of the lore like both of the aforementioned games, Genshin Impact's weapons give you 4 paragraphs of walls of text that tells you everything you need to know about the weapon. I know that this really doesn't impact the gameplay or the game itself, and it's just here to pander to lore nerds. But as a person that likes to read on lore like the books in Skyrim or watch lore videos on YouTube about games that I like, this is a very nice addition. I'm the type of person that needs to find everything in the game a reason. I don't want to find something in the game that's only there because of a game mechanic. And as I was writing the script for this video, I was simultaneously watching a Hollow Knight lore video that mentioned Super Metroid and how the game builds its world.
Super Metroid is basically the granddaddy of all Metroidvanias. That's why they're called Metroidvanias. Now in Super Metroid, there are moments that give the player a sense of depth. Basically the feeling that this world exists outside of Samus's interactions with it.
That is the perfect example of what I always expect from video games that I play, and what I want to see when I play them. The lip sync in the game seems broken at the time of writing the script. This is most probably because the developers only programmed one talking animation, and it's for the original dub of the game. Unless I'm wrong, still haven't tried it out. Most of the time, there's still audio of the characters talking, but their mouth will stop moving and makes you think they're talking to you telepathically.
暴風が発生するたびに怪我人も多数出るし、騎士団はその被害から守らなくちゃいけなくてね。騎士団はその被害から守らなくちゃいけなくてね。
The various landmarks in the game also tell a story. With NPCs you can interact to, giving you some tidbits of the lore about the place. There are also lore tablets that you can read on to get some cryptic messages as to why the place was built, why a seal was put in there, why there are monuments erected there, so on and so forth. And using that as a segue, let's talk about the regions in the game. The currently available regions in the game have themes from countries in real life. Now, I don't know my geography too well, so I don't know how accurate the representations are, but Mondstadt is themed after Germany, as you can see on the European style architectures, while Liyue is themed after China, as seen by these Chinese style establishments in Liyue Harbor. Both regions, and most probably all regions that will be released hereafter, have vast areas that comprise of different kinds of environment. You have rivers, ponds, forests, mountain ranges, and stone forest that I only found out to be an actual thing that exists in China because I'm writing the script, and so much more. Each region also has its own separate set of background music, which I also presume will be true to all regions that will be released throughout the game existence. The music set are mostly just different arranges of just 2 to 3 songs, but it's done so well it's hard not to like it. I will leave a couple of soundtrack videos down in the description. You'd notice that they have some similarities with Nier Automata and Dark Souls soundtrack, but it's really good. It's like if the soundtracks of both games had a love child. The result will probably be Genshin Impact's boss themes. Honestly, I can't praise it enough. Go check the links down below. Currently, there are no differences when it comes to enemies between regions. Only one set of enemies, the Fatui members, got added to Liyue, but everything else can be found in both regions. This goes the same for the dungeons, called domains in game. Domains in the game are mostly one-time playable, while the rest contain different rewards depending which day you're playing on. Hopefully, we get to see new enemies get added in the future updates of the game. Exploration also merits you with adventure experience to rank up your adventure rank. This adventure rank is tied in with what you can currently do in the game, as most quests and domain stages, as well as strengthening your characters and weapons, are locked behind an adventure rank requirement. After reaching a certain adventure rank, you are mandated to do the World Ascension quest. You cannot go past certain adventure ranks without doing this quest, and all access adventure experience will be wasted. What this World Ascension do is increase your world level, which dictates the level of enemies that you can find roaming the world. The benefit of increasing your world level is that the enemies will now drop advanced loots that are required for character and weapon upgrades. You are also given an adventurer handbook at some point in the game, which allows you to track world bosses, their respawn timers, and what loot they drop. These bosses drop character ascension materials, and it's a nifty handy thing to have. This type of environment is good for players that really love to explore the world as they play the game. But if you're the type of person that hates the exploration part of games like Skyrim or the Fallout games, and doesn't really care that much about lore and stories in the games and just want to kill things, you'll find the game incredibly boring, and this aspect of it will be a huge turn off for you. After all, to begin combat, you have to explore the world first. General combat is simple at best. You get your normal basic attack, one basic skill called Elemental Skill, and one special skill called Elemental Burst. Most characters have a 5 combo basic attack, and so far the only characters that I've seen having 4 combo attacks are Claymore users and Catalyst users, or the mages. The great thing is, even if the characters share the same weapon types, their attack animations will always be unique from each other. Some characters attack faster for the first 3 strikes and slow down for the last 2. Some just attack at normal speed throughout the combo. Some characters seem to even teleport in and out of existence that make them look like badass anime characters beating up the villain. You cannot perform attacks while in mid-air, although you can do plunge attack when you're high above enough from the ground, dealing massive damage that scales up on how high in the air you're plunged from. You don't need mana to use characters' elemental skill, but elemental bursts require energy that you can gather from beating up and defeating enemies or hitting them with your elemental skill. However, what makes Genshin Impact's combat unique in my opinion is the game's take on elements. In most RPGs, characters with innate elements have other elements that they are weak to or strong against. One of the most notable examples is Persona. I only played Persona 3, so take this comparison with a grain of salt, but in Persona 3, certain enemies are weak against certain elements, giving players a damage boost if they happen to attack them with that element. But at the same time, they also have elements that they are practically immune to. In Genshin Impact, you still have enemies that are immune to certain elements. Mostly it's the overly used elemental slime enemies that you can find in every fantasy RPG ever, but there's technically no elemental weaknesses. Instead, the game has elemental reactions. Every elemental attack that you can do in the game will surely apply a status effect on the enemy. For example, the fire element Pyro will be applied when using Xiangling's elemental skill or when you fire a fully charged shot from Ember. This in turn will apply a damage over time Pyro status onto the enemy. However, if you use another elemental attack other than Pyro, an elemental reaction will occur, instead of the elemental status being applied on top of Pyro. Applying the electric element Electro onto an enemy afflicted with Pyro, for example, will result into the elemental reaction Overloaded, which will trigger an explosion that deals huge amounts of damage to the enemy affected and other enemies in its immediate proximity. This will also remove both the Pyro status and Electro status from the enemy, unless affected again by an attack or through other means. There are currently 7 elements available in the game, and each of these elements have unique elemental reactions with each other. The only element that doesn't have unique interactions with other ones is Geo. Instead of doing crazy shit like exploding, electrocuting, or spreading the element, Geo elemental attacks just create crystals of the other elements that you can pick up to gain shield. It's extremely helpful in difficult fights. This mechanic will make you utilize the character switch feature of the game. If you've played Honkai Impact 3 before, you will be familiar with this. You can have up to 4 party members in any time, and you can switch between them by using the designated hotkey. When using a keyboard to play on PC, it's the keys 1 through 4. There's a small cooldown between switching characters, so be mindful of that. This will allow you to apply the elemental status effects that you want to enemies and trigger the elemental reaction that you need. You should go ahead and try to experiment which elemental reaction you like the most when you get a new character with an element different from the characters you currently have, if you manage to fucking get them. That brings us to perhaps the most important part of this review video, the Gacha System. And oh boy, the gacha rates in this game is fucking abysmal. The 2 gacha games that I have already reviewed in this channel also have low rates, but they are generous when it comes to the currency needed to pull gacha. In Genshin Impact, you'd be pulling 3-star weapons after 3-star weapons over and over again, even though there is a dedicated weapons banner, and you have a little to no supply of gacha currency. In fact, the rates are so bad it actually rivals Fate Grand Order. However, Genshin Impact plasters this abysmal, seemingly unfair and impossible gacha rates with wonderful gameplay and a vast open world that is very interesting to explore. Unlike FGO, where you just kind of sit there and watch the PNG images of characters that move like stickman figures kill each other, which, now that I think about it, is pretty much the plot of Fate series in a nutshell. But don't misconstrue this as me saying that FGO is a bad game. It's just not my cup of tea. Going back to Genshin Impact, in order to purchase gacha currency, you need to have Primogems. One gacha currency called Acquaint Fate for the standard gacha and Intertwined Fate for events can be purchased for 160 Primogems. 1,600 Primogems if you want to pull 10 times to receive the incentive of a guaranteed 4-star reward. You can gain Primogems by just playing the game, but it is really hard once you exhaust all possible quests and dungeons that give you an adequate amount of Primogems. The Spiral Abyss is your only good source of Primogems, which is unlocked at Adventure Rank 20. However, the Primo Gems here as a one-time reward and you need to clear floor 8 to get access to the Abyssal Moon Spire that resets every 2 weeks. As of right now, this is probably the best Primo Gem farm in the game. The second one is doing the daily commissions, which give you 60 Primo Gems per day when you complete them. Now, is the game pay to win? I personally think it's not. Sure, the gacha rate is bad, but the characters that I've been using are all freebies that I got from the game from doing certain quests or through events, and I have yet to spend real life money, but I'm doing just fine. Most of my characters' weapons are craftable as well, and they do just as decent as the gacha weapons I got. I also managed to get Jean, and she's my first 5-star character from the gacha, but to be quite honest, the free characters are just as good as her. But all in all, you can pretty much get by and plow through all the contents of the game with just the free stuff that you can get. Now that we've pretty much covered the good side of the game and how bad the gacha rates are, let's talk about the bad side. Genshin Impact is of course far from perfect. There are a lot of things that are in the game that miHoYo could improve on, but that will be on the separate video because I want to pump out more videos about this game to abuse the Genshin Impact clicks, and also because this video is already long enough. So instead, what we're going to focus on is the most glaring, poorly designed feature that this game has that players really hate about the game: the adventure rank spacing. Okay, look, I know the resin system is really shitty and a lot of people are already complaining about it on Atheist Land ad nauseum, but the thing is, while most people either want to abolish the resin system or defending it, I am in the middle of the spectrum. Yes, the system is bad, but I don't think it needs to be abolished. miHoYo just happened to implement it very poorly. The gacha games that I have mentioned earlier all have stamina systems, but they didn't cause an outrage as bad as the resin system did, because those games implemented their stamina systems well. Take for example Arknights. Their term for the game's stamina system, sanity, hits too close to home, because with how stamina hungry Arknights is, you'd lose your sanity trying to keep on playing the game. But you rarely hear people saying that the sanity system needs to be abolished. That's because the maximum amount of sanity that you can have increases along with your account level up to a certain point. It scales up. It also refills every time you increase your account level. The same thing goes with FGO. Now I see the Genshin Impact is already a single-player RPG and a stamina system is not needed argument a lot, and I think it's pretty weak. Honkai Impact 3, going by the argument's definition of single-player RPG, is a single-player RPG, but it also has its own stamina system. It's been a while since I've last played Honkai Impact 3 and I couldn't find the information I want on the internet, but assuming that the stamina in this game doesn't increase as well per account level, there are a lot of sources that will refill your stamina for absolutely free. miHoYo doesn't need to abolish the resin system in Genshin Impact. They should adjust it in a way that we don't run out of resin after 3 runs of world bosses or just by defeating the North Wolf and confronting Storm Tower. In conclusion, miHoYo really outdid themselves with this game. Again, I don't know how much similar it is to Breath of the Wild that calling it a clone is warranted, but this game is just so much fun to play. I also don't feel like the game is pay to win, not only because the free characters are already good, but because it's mostly PvE and there are no rankings whatsoever. There are also craftable equipment like most RPG do, and they are more than enough to experience the entirety of the game's content. The stamina system really needs a retouch, and miHoYo should implement it better than how it is today. The same goes to the way players gain adventure experience. Hopefully, the game continues to thrive in the upcoming years, because I sure am going to play this game continuously even more. Wow, now that took longer than my usual review videos. I decided to do something unique about this video, added some memes and whatnot. Hopefully, they're not cringe-worthy. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. I'm definitely going to pump out some more Genshin Impact videos as well, so hit the subscribe button if you want more of that. It really helps the channel out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.